Hey, what is up, mortals? Season 3 Part 1 of What If Toga Was in 1A. I just wanted to greet you guys by just saying, sit back and relax, you're in for a treat. So, we begin. Bakugo watched as Uraraka was picked up by her parents, and the teachers left to prepare for their plans. The boy started to make his way from the hospital with his hands in his pockets. Before Bakugo could leave, Izuku called out to him. A few others followed the green-haired boy out close behind. Izuku explained their plan to use Momo's tracker to follow the signal from Anamu to the villain's hideout. Izuku held a small confident smile as he invited his friend to join them, even if it wasn't a plan that fit Bakugo's usual style. Bakugo looked from Izuku to the others behind him with a serious stare. He couldn't risk telling them All Might's plan after All Might himself told him not to. He still couldn't just let them go. The group had many of Toga's friends from class. If things went poorly, and Toga was spotted in a bad condition in front of all of her friends, it would only push her further away. Bakugo grumbled before he took out his phone. He then pulled up his call screen with All Might's number at the ready and his thumb over the call button. He had been given the number along with Uraraka in case an emergency came up regarding Toga. He hated to pull this card, but it was the only one he could without a major risk coming to his teacher's plans or the instructions to keep things quiet. He then held up his phone for the others to see. You'll only get yourselves killed like a bunch of idiots. If you go, I'll call All Might right here and now, he said as he locked eyes with the stunned Izuku. I hate that I can't attack those creeps too, but real heroes are on the case, Deku. We'll only get hurt and get in their way. Toga went willingly with them. They wouldn't hurt her if she pretends to work with them, and she knows that. It's only been one day. Give the pros a chance to do their actual jobs. Go home. The others looked a bit discouraged, but Izuku still held a strong, determined look. I can't do that, Kaken. She's there because I couldn't stop her, but we can get her back now together. He offered, certain that his words were facts. And what if you tick off the villains and get her killed on accident? Bakugo asked in a serious tone. Izuku's face fell a bit in positivity. We'll be careful, Kaken. Please, Izuku started, but stopped as Bakugo hit call. What is it, young Bakugo? All Might's voice inquired from the phone's speaker. You're on speaker, Deku. And his friends are trying to go after Toga, he said flatly. I see. There was a silent moment before All Might spoke again. Young Midoriya, please stand down. I promise you I will explain tomorrow. For now, please stand down for me. He then agreed to stand down. He seemed like a puppy that had been yelled at despite his mentor's kind demeanor. The others looked far less likely to run into battle now as well, after all their plan had been ratted out and shot down. With a final look from Bakugo, he hung up and walked away. He hated how he had to handle the situation, but after everything he knew, following his idol's lead was the best idea. About an hour later, Toga sat in a booth with Magni brushing out her hair. Toga tried to focus on Magna's words over the broadcast that had been playing for the past while. You have very nice hair, Sugar, but if you leave your hair in tight buns all the time, you're going to seriously damage it from constantly putting a tight strain on it. It already looks worn out from you sleeping in them, Magni advised their newest member. It was pretty apparent that Toga didn't really like hearing the interviewers berating her teachers about how badly the students have been attacked thus far, especially not when they kept bringing up Uraraka's condition before her recovery. Shigaraki was determined to keep watching, so Magni had decided to go full big sister to their new member to help distract her. I know, I used to wear my hair down before I went to UA. I liked the twin buns, so I started to wear my hair up. That, and I found them cuter. Toga replied half-heartedly. She was clearly distracted. There's plenty of cute styles out there, Sugar. You should try some loose ones here and there too. Trust me, your hairline will love you for it too. She started to restyle Toga's hair. If you still want a bun, you could have a half down, half up with a loose bun on the back. Toga tried to listen to Magni but failed to as she kept hearing the broadcast. She practically winced upon the reporters announcing how heavily people were calling for the school to shut down. The idea was rejected quickly though, as well as some new rules will be put in place to help ensure the children's safety were announced. Dorms would be implemented, as well as an offer of assistance to any students who needed to transfer to a new school where they may feel safer. They are taking things more seriously. This is wonderful, Spinner said excitedly. He looked to Toga with a brightly lit smile at their progress. Toga gave a half-hearted one back. Yeah, Toga practically mumbled out. Just ignore it, Sugar, Magni advised as she finished up Toga's hair just as she had suggested earlier. You're free here, which means you don't have to act happy if you don't want to. Toga smiled a bit more at Magna's support. Toga passed a mirror and blinked surprised. Wow, you're actually pretty good at this, Toga praised. It all takes practice, Sugar, Magni said with a smile. The subject on the TV then changed back to Toga once more. Toga's eyes shifted over to the screen as her heart sank about how they talked about her. And what are the chances of that student being turned to the side of the villains? Himeko Toga's quirk could easily be seen as villainous. Not to mention her fight with the young Katsuki Bakugo had very quickly gotten life-threatening in nature due to the escalating situation she debatedly caused. Can you really debate the fact that she would be a prime candidate for them to sway to the path of villainy? The reporter asked the school staff. Himiko Toga is more than just her quirk and a single fight. You fail to give that young girl more credit that she rightfully deserves. Vlad shouted as he stood up. She is a great student and an even better person. Her mistakes don't make up who she is, and I will gladly fight any who wish to say otherwise. She's a smart and strong-willed girl. I don't think she could so easily be turned to the side of villainy. Aizawa added firmly before Nezu cut in to calm both teachers who were getting riled up while restating the previous points more calmly. Someone's got a fan club already, Dabai stated, almost amused at how the staff defended Toga. That reporter clearly has a bias though. Toga's heart warmed at her teacher's supportive words. She didn't know if they knew the truth about what she did, but the fact they had defended her so openly made her feel a little less torn up inside for a moment, only for the feeling to return along with her guilt over what she had done behind everyone's backs, as well as what she did to her friend before she left. The fact that the backlash likely was even worse due to her friend's state after the incident tore Toga up further, knowing her actions had really messed things up for a lot of people. Her teachers, school, and friends, all of them were affected due to what she had done. Kurogiri saw Toga's defeated look and reached over and turned off the TV. I was watching that, Shigaraki grumbled out. I do apologize, but I'd rather not cause our newest member to leave as suddenly as she joined due to watching too much news, Kurogiri explained, and went back to cleaning one of his glasses. Oh please, she wouldn't bail so soon. After all, we're clearly making a great impression on her already. She's practically out the door running. Twice added in. Toga got out of the booth she was in and stretched. She remembered the role she had to keep the appearances of for now. No, I'm fine. I guess I'm just really tired. Last night was pretty crazy after all, she explained simply. Toga made her way to the window to take some time to watch the nightlife. Her eyes widened as she saw the practical army forming outside around Endeavor. Ooh, oh no, Toga muttered out, gaining the attention of the others. Oh no, Spinner said as he looked out the window as well. Oh no, Dabai repeated, confused. Suddenly the front door then blew off its hinges with a shout from All Might. Oh yes, we are here, All Might declared as wood shot forward that encased the villains around Toga. Dabai went to burn the wood only to be knocked out by Gran Torino. All Might smiled confidently then to the young girl. Not to worry, young Toga. We are here to save you. They shall no longer force you to do anything you don't want to, like changing your hairstyle, he said as he noticed her new look. But I like how it looks, Toga replied after the initial shock of the man's sudden appearance. Then worry not. He gave her a thumbs up. You look great. Thanks, Toga replied, confused. Focus, Toshinori, Gran Torino reminded him with a firm tone. All Might nodded and redirected his attention to the important situation at hand. Your friends informed me of what happened the other night, as well as their suspicion of your situation with your quirk. I need you to know that as quirks get stronger with each passing generation, they tend to grow in issues with control as well. It is more than likely that you're in such a situation. In other words, what you're going through is totally natural, but if left unchecked it will only get worse. His face held a reassuring smile as he peered down to the frowning girl. I know you only wish to help people. If you allow us to help you, I know you can take back control of your situation that I could imagine feels out of control. Toga clenched her fists as she looked down. I don't belong with the others, All Might, not after what I did, she said with the best firm tone she could muster. I know it feels that way now, but I assure you that that is not true. You have a family back home, teachers who wish to help you, who would even fight the world just to help you become the best person you can be, friends who all just wish for your safe return. Even Uraraka. He knew what happened between them likely was tearing up the girl inside, which likely only pushed her further away. I know the fear you must have felt. It's no doubt the reason why you hid everything. The man walked up to the girl who looked off in order to hide her face and her tears she tried to hold back. All Might then kneeled down to get to her level. Vlad wished for me to inform you that upon your return, if you come to find yourself in need of a place to call home once your parents learn your situation, that he would be proud to provide you a place to stay where you will never be judged. He wanted me to remind you that you are who you choose to be, not what others make you be or say you are. His voice was soft and full of reassuring warmth. Toga finally allowed herself fully to cry as she moved in and hugged All Might, who held her closely. No, stop ruining my plans. Stop, Shigaraki shouted in anger. His shouts were cut off by ooze that came out from his mouth. The ooze then came from the other villains, and then Toga's. Her eyes grew wide in disgust and fear. Soon more ooze formed that released Namo into the area. All Might held the girl tighter as the ooze spread over him as well. Worry not, I will not allow them to hurt you, All Might said with a confident smile. He looked back to Gran Torino, who nodded to him after kicking a neck by Namo. The two were then engulfed in the ooze and taken away from the area. The two then fell to the ground at the freshly destroyed factory. Well, isn't that unfortunate? All for One's voice cut in through the mild winds of the location. All Might's face dropped as he held the coughing girl in his arms. Before him stood the man he had hoped wouldn't have been involved in the situation so closely despite the likelihood of it. All for One ordered his apprentice to leave. As All Might set Toga down instructing her to run, both men never looked away from each other. Shigaraki tensed and refused at first, only for Kurogiri to reassure him that things would be fine. But only if they left now. Toga tensed up at the situation as she and Spinner looked around them to the knocked-out heroes and civilians in the area amongst the rubble. She looked to All Might one last time before she ran. Spinner looked from the injured to the two juggernauts before him. The situation fully started to set in. He was on the wrong team. All Might had been one of the heroes that Stain had declared a true hero. If he stood so firmly against the man his group's leader took orders from, it likely meant the man was bad news, not to mention all the injured around them all. Was he truly making the right kind of difference? It all had so far made more progress than standard heroism. Yes, but this group in particular likely wasn't the best idea given the two who lead it. To follow these leaders would not truly fit to Stain's will. Spinner stated firmly as Magni frowned at Spinner. No matter what we fight for, I doubt we can accomplish what we desire properly in this group. Magni sighed before she gave him a nod. The two looked to Twice, who looked thoughtful for a moment before he apologized. He then grabbed Dabai and fled with Shigaraki and Kurogiri. They weren't certain on his reasons to stick with the villains, but respected them. They let him leave as Spinner looked to All Might with a smile. Show him what a real hero can do. The two villains that remained then raced off in the same direction as Toga. All Might was a bit confused at the man and concerned for the young girl, but before he could decide to do anything about it, he was attacked by All for One. All Might and All for One then began an all-out fight between each other. Neither held anything back now that neither had to protect their own. Toga slowed to a stop once she finally got a safe distance away from the situation. As all the chaos in her mind fought for her attention, the ground despite her distance still shook from the fight. She held herself as she slowly fell to her knees. The other two slowed to a stop once they caught up to see the young girl's state. Spinner's excitement died a little as he remembered the girl's interaction with All Might. Up till now he hadn't thought much of her past beyond her brief time with them. Unlike the rest of them, she still had ties that kept her from fully joining them. Ties that were trying to get her to return to them. Magni then walked over and slowly kneeled down next to the girl to hold her as she cried. The two hadn't become great friends in their short time together, but Magni knew the girl still needed someone to help her right now. The perfect person to do that no doubt was far from their location, so a new acquaintance would have to be the next best thing. After a while, Toga finally spoke in a heartbroken tone. I don't know what to do. Toga practically whispered out, barely loud enough to be heard over the booms in the distance. What does your heart tell you to do? Magni replied. Toga gripped onto the other woman tighter as she thought. I think I want to go back, but if things go wrong again, then come find us. Spinner finally spoke up. We don't care about your flaws. Baden, you can help fight for Stains will the best way you can with us. Toga slowly looked up to the two who smiled at her supportively. She slowly smiled back to them with tear-stained cheeks. For the first time ever, she finally felt like no matter what happened, she'd finally be okay. Magni gently patted her head as she helped her stand again. Go home, wherever that may be. If that doesn't work out, you'll have plenty of fun with us later, living any life you want, free of others' orders. She gently touched up Toga's hair. Except for one. Be kinder to your hair, sugar. Thanks, guys. And I'll try my best, big sis, Toga said with a soft smile. The group went their separate ways as Toga wiped her cheeks. While she ran, Toga looked to screens as the brutal fight between All Might and All for One raged on. Both were in very bad shape at this point. She rushed into a store. TP asked to use their phone. The shopkeep looked from the TV they had onto the girl before their eyes grew wide. You're that kidnapped kid, the clerk said in disbelief. Yes, very shocking. Can I please use your phone now? Toga asked again as the two looked at the screen. All Might declared his finishing move. One that would finish the other man off due to his added energy he had from not having to hold back, nor draw out the fight from the start. Sadly, the move left him in his small might from. All Might then passed on the torch of hope to the next generation, and the number 2 hero. He then shifted to his full form once more to strike a pose before falling over. Toga teared up at the sight, but took the phone when the man finally gave it to her. She froze though once she realized she had to pick someone to call. Given how she normally just called people via her contact list, she didn't memorize many numbers, which made her options limited. Off the top of her head, she could only remember 3 numbers. Hiroraka, her mother, and the emergency police number 110. Her mother drilled the number in her head since she was a child. She couldn't bring herself to call either her mother nor her best friend right now, so the police were the next best thing. After explaining the situation over the phone, Toga waited at the store. Thankfully, when they arrived, her parents weren't with them. One of her teachers were though. Vlad had been informed of the call and had opted into joining them to get the young student. Vlad exited the police car then smiled when he saw she was okay. "Himiko, I'm sorry for not being there sooner for you," Vlad said as he rushed over. "I'm sorry too," Toga replied as she closed the distance to hug the man tightly. "You have no need to apologize to me. I'm just glad you're okay," he said as he gently held her. That night was yet another restless one for the young girl. After the truth of what really happened came out, soon came a shouting match between Vlad and her father about how to handle Toga. Her mother, as usual, tried to defend Toga, though her look screamed how unnerved she was. After all, she had now seen firsthand what her daughter could do if she allowed herself to. Toga decided to text Uraraka, Bakugo, and Izuku finally after her mother gave her the phone she had left at the camp. Though she mostly wanted to help distract herself from the angry parent war going on, she felt bad for how impersonal the texts were, though she knew they all deserved something. That, and she knew with at least Uraraka she'd probably wimp out if she had to elaborate on anything at the moment. She simply wrote to them all that she was back, safe, and sorry. The distraction helped for the 5 seconds it took to send them all. By then her attention came back to the war that still raged on in front of her. Her father motioned to her a lot, but just like a few months ago he utterly avoided looking at her. Her heart ached at the fact their progress regressed so far so fast. She was at least glad that she hadn't broken her bond with her mother totally yet. By the time the decision came on what to do, Toga was totally emotionally drained. It was decided that she for now stay with Vlad until the dorms opened up, then move in there while she went through quirk therapy. Her mother had reassured her that she still loved her, and that she would bring Toga her things as well. Her mother still seemed a bit shaken up by the truth, but still cared for her daughter despite everything. After her parents left, Vlad reassured her that everything would be okay before he stepped away to finish up the police report. The part of the young girl regret returning home, as well as debated if things would truly get better. Thankfully though, the part of her that knew better reminded her of Bakugo's words from what felt like ages ago, Vlad's supportive reassurance, and All Might's speech to her from before. She would be okay, but it would still take time to get to okay. After Toga fell asleep on the way home, Vlad brought Toga to his guest room. It was there that she chose to stay 95% of the time, for the next few days. During this time she occasionally looked at her phone when it would blow up with concerned texts from her friends, and the occasional one of best wishes from her mother. During dinner and his daily checkups, Vlad was sure to tell her when others asked to visit her. He was sure to never push the young girl to see anyone. He wanted to give her time to breathe after everything, as well as time to rest given how exhausted she was when she first arrived. After the first few days though, he did tell her she needed to see her first visitor. It had been Mr. Aizawa who had come to tell her about how quirk therapy would work, and how he would like her to start it next week so she could get used to it before the students would be made to move into the dorms. Toga figured it also was his way of warning her that soon she would have to move into the dorms with just about everyone she had been avoiding. Before he left, he then told her she had to do a lot of makeup work she missed out on, only for Toga to finally move out of her dead-looking funk to a scrunched-up face. "We were on break. Did you seriously assign homework on break?" Toga asked, dumbfounded at the possibility. "Suppose you're right. You all were on break. Guess giving homework would be a bit much," Aizawa replied with a mild smirk. Toga blinked before she caught on to the fact he was messing with her. She let a small smile pass for a moment, which cued the teacher to leave content with his accomplishment. Vlad smiled, pleased at the fact the girl finally seemed even remotely out of her funk. He then brought up the fact that some of the others at school had insisted on coming by as well. That, and the fact he had unfortunately been overpowered by them, so he had to bring them by. This being more or less a joke, but when she saw the group of girls she normally hung out with rush and she was doubtful that the man could them if he tried. Toga jumped at first as the girls all hugged her, but let a small smile grow for a moment. A moment later she then let a panicked look take its place. "Wait, you should have told me sooner. I still got Major Bedhead Vlad," Toga shouted out, which only led the man to chuckle along with the other girls. Toga's eyes then fell to Uraraka, who waited for the other girls to pull away. Toga could feel her heart sink into stomach with guilt for a moment before Uraraka gave her the warmest smile and moved in to hug her. Unlike her parents, despite what she had done, her friend seemed to hold no fear towards Toga. Toga slowly hugged her back and whispered, "I'm so sorry," Toga said with teary eyes. "I know, and I forgive you," Uraraka whispered back. "Thank you," Toga said in a shaky tone as the weight on her shoulders finally lifted. "But if you ever knock me out again to leave with villains, I will hurt you," Uraraka said seriously, but with a hint of a jokey smile. "Understood," Toga replied with a bright smile, and happy tears rolling down her face. Elsewhere, Shigaraki scratched at his neck while he paced around. He was just down to 3 underlings at this point. He was losing. He didn't like losing. His master had also passed away in the fight. He was running out of options. Thankfully, a small bit of hope came as Twice walked in with someone. Twice said that the man had seen their work and would like to work with them. Shigaraki's eyes met the masked man, who gave a slight wave. I was planning on watching you longer before I came to you, but you seem promising and like you could use the help. You can call me overhaul. Thank you all for sticking around, and I hope that you enjoyed it. Before you leave, we would just like to let you know that We the Celestials has many other channels for your entertainment and viewing purposes. All the information you'll need is right below here in the description, so feel free to check out all the other incredible projects our team creates. Secondly, on behalf of We the Celestials, I'd like to thank everyone involved in the production of today's awesome content. Their details will be in the description below. That's all for today's video, so goodbye and have a divine day.